up everybody, Justin here to start this year's of reviews with a very lesser known anime to the Western audience, and that title is Beat X, with the original manga done by Kuramada Masami sensei, who you may know as the creator of Saint Seiya. And let me show you what this anime is about and then get into why I personally like this anime. In the future, humans and machines live in this world but not in coexistence. And you can't call this a rip-off of The Matrix because the manga came out a few years before The Matrix, damn it! But yes, the machines have their own empire and they are kidnapping the world's top scientists to help them on a secret project. After many years apart, Takamiya Teppei goes to China to reunite with his older brother Kotaro, who is now one of the greatest scientific minds on Earth despite his youth. During the conference in China, Kotaro has been kidnapped by the Machine Empire, and Teppei goes off to fight the Empire and save his brother. On the brink of death during his first significant fight, Teppei's blood makes contact with a machine called a beat, an artificial intelligence based on mythological creatures which stands for brain, blood, bravery, and battler. And when a human makes blood contact with a beat, that beat will become that person's companion no matter what. And the beat that Teppei has come in contact with is the legendary X, which was also the former beat to his mentor, Karen, who was once one of the Empire's greatest warriors after leaving them after learning their darkest secrets. Despite their initial tension, X decides to team with Teppei in order to save Kotaro. Along the journey, Teppei will make some new friends and foes, and most of them will acknowledge that he has a special potential they all wish to see that he fulfills. Well, not only the art and animation, which I'll get into later, but many of the plot and character elements share a lot in common with some of Kuramada Sensei's previous works, specifically Saint Seiya and Ringu ni Kakedo. For example, family bond and longing to reunite with a lost sibling is once again an emphasized theme in this series. It gives Teppei a strong motivation to go on an initial one-man mission to fight an empire to save his brother. Though in Saint Seiya, Satan wanting to find his sister gets majorly sidetracked until nearly the end, this element is consistent throughout the series. Another Kuramada Sensei characteristic is a female mentor to the main character, who serves as a sister figure. In Saint Seiya, Seiya is taught by Marin, who he assumes to be his sister. And in Ringu ni Kakedo, Ryuji is trained by his sister Kiku. While in Beat X, Teppei is trained by Karen, who you can say is like a big sister type figure to Teppei, though they don't outright say it. And it's interesting to know that their relationship isn't really that 100% explored in this series, but the series shows the full picture with very little. However, this story does feel darker compared to those other works and has little to no comedic elements. Teppei very rarely smiles in comparison to Seiya, who shares a 100% similar design and is always dead serious and has more of a I want to kick your ass kind of look. So it works inconsistent with the atmosphere of the series. Another element is mythological influences. With Saint Seiya, it uses Greek mythology. Of course you know that if you're familiar with this series. Beat X uses Asian mythologies, though some elements of Greek and other European sources will be present later on. But what really drives this series is the relationship between Teppei and X and the theme of unlocking your own potential. Like how Saint Seiya had this theme of making miracles happen, this anime also brings those qualities in this series and works in its own way with Teppei and X. At first, X wants nothing to do with Teppei, but when Teppei proves his determination to X, X becomes loyal to Teppei, and you do see this relationship develop to the point where all things are possible. The remaining cast, such as Hokuto, Fo, and Ron, do bring a shade of gray. Despite being warriors of the Machine Empire, they understand what needs to be done, and it's not because of lack of loyalty, but a matter of personal principle and understanding they don't want to be in an everybody loses situation. Even though they don't acknowledge themselves as Teppei's friends throughout the series, they encourage him to reach his fullest potential, which makes you question why they want that. Do they want to fight him at his best, or do they want to defeat the Machine Empire? Unfortunately, this series ends where things are about to get really started, but thankfully there is an OAV series which continues, which I will review at a later date. So I will leave the story and characters at an 8 out of 10. Naturally, as I said before, Teppei looks like Saint Seiya along with Ryuji from Ringu ni Kakedo. Kurumada Sensei has admitted he recycles his character designs because he thinks of them as his own actors and giving them different roles. Not only Teppei, but other characters such as Fo, Ron, and Kotaro will also feel familiar to those that are fans of Kurumada Masami Sensei's work, so expect that. But not only does it feel like Kurumada Sensei, the design doesn't just feel exclusively just to his art style, but it kind of also feels like, what's his name? Yeah, the guy who did Fatal Fury, Obari Masami. The sharpness and the details to the eyes remind me of how he does those designs in Fatal Fury, but I don't see him in the credits. But I guess it does give an appropriate 90s feel to when that sharpness and the over-detailed eyes were a common quality in other popular series at that time, such as Saber Marionette J, El Hazard, and Magic Knight Ray Earth. The design of the mechs are pretty cool. As previously stated, there is more influence on Asian mythology, so the beats are more influenced by Chinese animals seen as divine. For example, X is based on the Kirin. For's mecha, I can't pronounce, I think it was like Jitame or something. It's a French name and I don't fucking speak French. And pardon my French. It's based on the phoenix. And Ron's is based on an Asian dragon, and Hokuto's mech is based on the turtle. And they all represent the north, south, east, west, and Chinese mythology. And each others offer their own gimmick and given an appropriate color scheme. So they all work out and have functions that work in conjunction to their sizes and designs. However, I really don't get why Teppei gets battle armor as some of the other power-ups, as some sort of power-up, while the other characters don't. The series does explain why he has it, but I don't understand why he's the only one that gets it, while, let's say, Four and Ron don't. The action isn't as explosive as Ringu Kakedo and Saint Seiya, but works in its own ways. The action isn't too gimmicky, but it's still distinctive. But for example, some characters will have techniques that will hurt the eardrums, and some have moves that will make their opponents hallucinate. This time the anime revolves around wit and sheer will, but in a new context and teamwork that is used in a unique way. The moves are more science-oriented, such as Teppei's Messiah Fist and For's Violin Bow, which resonates soundwaves. I won't say it's scientific-oriented, but let's say, well, it is, but to put it more specifically, more mechanically oriented. A lot of people like to categorize this as a mech anime, but I kind of don't feel that way. Considering that the mech isn't exactly controlled and feels more like a partner, I see this more as a sci-fi action anime as opposed to flat-out mech, though mech is a subgenre of sci-fi. But I don't think it really exactly qualifies as a mech. The action relies on trusting one another, not controlling. Though it feels like one-on-one, it is two-on-two instead, with Teppei and X against their opponent in their beat. Like, for example, when you see Char and his Zaku with Amuro and his Gundam, you do see it as like Char versus Amuro, as opposed to Char and the Zaku versus Amuro and the Gundam. While with this, you kind of do see it's two-on-two. While with Gundam or Macross, you do see it as one-on-one. That's the way I view it. And the action isn't as reliant on using special moves, so typical hand-to-hand combat will be frequently used more. It is more speed and agility oriented as opposed to power oriented, so it's pretty distinct in comparison to Saint Seiya and Ringu Kakedo. So I give the art and animation a 9 out of 10. Though Kurumada Sensei likes to recast his actors in his manga, unfortunately Furuya Toru does not resume his role in that design. Playing the role of Teppei is Hiyama Nobuyuki, most famous in the roles of Hiei from Yu Yu Hakusho and Shiro from Gundam OA Themis Team. His pitch is more in tune with the upbeat feel of Shiro as opposed to the lower voice he uses as Hiei. He is very aggressive but also soft, but does come across as a teenager but yet mature and world-weary, but does have this feel of optimism. Sasaki Nozomu, the voice of Yusuke from Yu Yu Hakusho and Tetsuo from Akira, is the voice of Teppei's brother Kotaro. His voice feels a lot like Horikawa Ryo's performance as Shun from Saint Seiya, who is more compassionate, soft, and low, and feels a bit feminine. And compared to those performances, it feels distinct and fresh and gives a new exposure to their acting talents. Another great talent I enjoyed was that of Fujiwara Keiji as Ron. Fujiwara tends to play characters who are more of a smartass, like Kimura from Hajime no Ippo, Reno from Final Fantasy VII, and Shingo from Initial D. But in this series, he's very serious, he's more cold and calculating. His voice is still recognizable, but does sound more appropriately intimidating and not as comedic as he is in his more notable roles. My only issue with the voice acting is that they don't modulate X's voice. The series modulates the other beats appropriately, sounding more mechanic, but X sounds like a regular human being. I don't know if it's done purposely to give him a more human quality, but I prefer if he had the more mechanical voice. It does flow like a regular person, but I think it should be modulated like the voices in the English Transformers. And the music is just awesome. The background music works very well. Like whenever Teppei battle gears on, the soundtrack really gives us this shine that Teppei shows. It gives an uplifting feel in this dark world. The other music just simply works in conjunction with the atmosphere of the series. The opening theme also has this intense feel, but also shares the themes of breaking the limits and also about hope. So really, nothing to really add, but say the music speaks for itself when you watch it. And just the only flaw I can give, as I said before, is how they portrayed X's voice. Now, I really have no performance with the performance, but it's the lack of the conveyance. So I give the music and voice acting a 9.5 out of 10. Of course, after you finish this series, you'll be required to watch the following OAV to get any continuation in any further direction. However, throughout watching this, you also get the impression that you also need to read the manga to put more things into context. Unfortunately, I have not read the manga, so I will read it when I get the chance. But consistently, you have heard me compare this to Kurumada Sensei's previous works, and I do say this is a gateway to see how he does things. I personally don't recommend this anime for people new to Kurumada Masami, even though some things may be different. I say having some familiarity with his style and work will help you understand this anime more, specifically the two titles I repeatedly mentioned. For that, I give Beat X an overall score of an 8.6 out of 10.